All right, so Fat Joe versus the FBA, right? Joe appeared on Math Hoffa's podcast and they started talking about the hip hop was created 50-50 by blacks and Puerto Ricans. And he called the FBA black radical racists. Then he said they are some broke N-words. What was like your immediate reaction when you saw him say that?
Well, first and foremost, I didn't even know what FBA was. That was something that when I heard it, I was like, what? What are they talking about? So when I started researching and studying, I said, I think he took it a little out of context for what it stands for. Foundational Black Americans, or Black Americans that were born here, first, second, third, fourth generation, whatever, didn't come from another place, as in the Caribbean or whatever. They're just born here and they're straight up Americans. Okay, we crossed that road now. Now he made it sound like when he was saying it, like if it was like this faction of people that rallied together as a coalition to go against, the hip hop community or whatever. And that's not the case. I understand what FBA is now that I've studied it. That's just saying that we were here, we were in the ghettos, we were in the streets, and we now created this culture that we now call hip hop. It was shared amongst many people at the time, basically being Black and Hispanic. But the point that I think a lot of people are failing to realize is the forefront leaders that were actually making moves and sacrificing and not really making money just to put this culture on the platform were Black and Hispanics, but more Blacks when it came to mainstream. So I don't want to take away from the culture of us sharing it. We do share it. I feel that we share it. I just feel like what's happening politically is people are starting to differentiate on who was the mainstream people that opened up the doors versus the people that were grassroots in the street making the culture the culture. So it's two sides to it. You got underground, which is people that are, out there breakdancing, DJing, rhyming, MCing, doing their thing. And at the same time, you got people that are opening doors, that are getting record deals, and that are actually making a living out of this culture. So at that time, when it was the beginning stages, there were only a few brothers that were actually making a living off of what they loved, hip hop. That's where I think it's getting a little convoluted. Those people were the people that opened the doors for us to make money and to be seen on a platform that you couldn't be seen on unless you were in the streets doing it. Now, in the streets doing it, it was both cultures mingling, making it happen. So I think a lot of people get caught up trying to pick one side over the other. We were all doing it, but the mainstream for a long time was really just the brothers getting in the door for whatever reason. I don't know. Labels might have just been seeing that, and we were just being the popular people at the time that were in the forefront of it. Your Curtis Blows, your Run DMCs, those forefront brothers, your Grandmaster Flash and Furious Fives. So when you take it and you look at it in a nutshell, you're going to want to pick a side, but you got to look at the whole grassroots of it. There's people in the street that are actually cultivating the culture, and there's people in the industry that are taking it to a business level. And that's where the FBA situation, to me, started getting a little confusing for people. They started trying to pick sides and figure out, well, we did this, you did that, you weren't here, we were there. Unless you were there, you can't say who was doing what, and there's a lot of brothers that have been stepping up. I can mention a couple names that I've witnessed that, have said, I was there and we were doing a lot of the legwork, in the mainstream standpoint.
So in regards to the FBA though, right? Because, the whole situation with Joe going at the FBA is over the whole 50-50 argument that he's been pushing for a long time. Like he was upset that, somebody, Tariq Nasheed came out with that documentary Microphone Check and was was disproving what he was saying with the 50-50 argument. And I think that Joe didn't choose his words very carefully when he was on Math Hoffa's podcast. He was speaking out of emotion,
Oh,
because by definition, FBA, like you were saying, like is your lineage, and a lot of people, that applies to a lot of people, right? So when he said his comments, he was talking really about a small fraction of people within that group that has been going at him, going at him online and on social media and stuff like that. So instead of saying it the way that he did, he should have been more specific and careful with his words, because now it was like interpreted like, oh, he dissing all Black people that are within this lineage, when he was really talking about this fraction of people that he has had, this back and forth with.
I agree. I mean, and him calling them broke ass niggas, that was a very malicious comment itself, Um, listen, man, people show their personality and their character sometimes in their weakest moments. That was a weak moment, I think, on his behalf by saying it the way he said it. You're on a platform, you're a person that has a voice that people are watching and listen to, and you just sitting here defacing, even if you thought it was just those dudes, right? Let's say that was it. You were just talking to those people. That's the way you come at them. That's the rhetoric you want to pump out here on that platform. And that's why the backlash is what it is right now. Because it's like that wasn't, politically correct for him, a person in his position, to say something on that level to these people that he might have been speaking to you, like you said, outside of the foundational Black individuals that we are actually using FBA to talk about. So if he wanted to come at them personally, he should have just singled them out and said what he needed to say to each one of those individuals on that platform. That's how I feel about it.
Right. And I think that, like within a group, there are always people that, may be a little bit more um into certain beliefs and stuff like that. Like not everybody is going to subscribe to like 100% of everything, right? It's just like in religion, some people take certain things a little bit more serious, but you're both Catholic or something, you're
Good
both
point.
Christian
Yeah,
or
good
something,
point.
but yeah, so then like some people may be considered more extreme, but that doesn't mean that everybody is the same. Like that's not a representation for all people or within that
Yeah,
group, by definition. And I think that the way that he had put it out there made it seem like everyone that belonged to this group is that way. And now we're seeing the backwards reaction of that, where people are like, well, Joe is the representation for all Puerto Ricans or all Latinos. And people, they are all like this. They're all racist. They all feel the way that he does, and
no,
that's not right. Because I really dislike blanket statements like that, because it's
no,
never
that's
true. You know what I mean? Like it's like stereotypes might have like a little bit of truth to it, but it's always like blown out of proportion. It doesn't apply every single time. And I think that that's like the real bad thing about this situation. Like you said, he did address Lord Jamar, but if he wanted to address Tariq Nasheed, which it seemed like that's what he really wanted to do, he should have just did that, you
yeah,
know? And there are people that follow these people more seriously than
yeah,
others.
yeah, and they all have a following. So, it's kind of like bad for the culture too, man. Like, at the end of the day, be- now this has started a division where it shouldn't have been any division to begin with. We all like the culture has now become so multifaceted, and now the division has become something new because of these comments that people are looking. Oh, who did this? Who did that? And I think, like I said, when you're on a platform like that and you have that kind of power, you got to watch what you say and think about what you say before you do it. You can't really just spit out whatever rhetoric you feel is, how your emotions, like you said. He got very emotional at that time and spoke about maybe some other people, but made it this general comment. And now look, here we are. It started like this little war back and forth with all these different, thoughts of who did this and who did that. That we shouldn't be talking about any of that diversity. It's so diverse in this culture. Like, oh well, we created. Come on, man. This is now bigger than just Black and Hispanic, you know?
I get where the FBA are coming from in the sense of like, okay, like history is constantly being rewritten, right? So they just want the truth out there. So, you know, it hip hop is I believe it is FBA culture. They really did create it, you know, as far as like the inception, right?
Yes.
Latinos came in and were the earliest first participants and helped elevate the culture. And hip hop would not be what it is today without other cultures coming in and making it worldwide. That's why it's as big as it is, right? Because it's everywhere. Literally the
Yes.
most influential, strongest culture, transcends color lines, everything, right?
Can I back up one of your points of what you're saying? I don't mean to cut you off, but when we were growing up, there were no Latin rappers. There were just a lot of black rappers that we all looked up to as legends. And all the legends, I hate to say it that way, were black rappers. You didn't really have any Latin rappers until you had the Fat Joes and the Big Puns. You know what I'm saying? And there was a few others prior before them, but it was just such a handful. So that's why, yes, the FBA, we listen, the culture is the culture because a lot of black people stepped up and made it what it is. And that's it. That's bottom line. Late, and you want to say the doors were closed on Latin Brothers? It was. Because, like you said, the inception was just to see another brother doing what he does with his talent and making something like it was creativity. Back then, it was you had to be on top of your game. You had to be creative, and you had to be the swaggerlicious dude that was bringing something different to the table. Nobody was biting. There was no biting allowed. Not like now where everybody just rides a wave and follows what everyone else is doing. There
Right,
was no
right.
biting allowed. You had to be different and had to be your own. And that's what made hip hop what it is today. So the foundation is from what we know it to be.
Right. And so, you know, and that's why, because you know, like black people have created so many different things in America, right? Specific, if you just even talk about music wise, so many genres have been taken over, and the face of that genre, like rock and roll. When you say rock and roll, it's not like you think of a black dude anymore. You think about some white guy with long hair, pretty much, right? Like just that's like the stereotypical image that pops up. And so I think that there's
Some
a
people's
love.
favorite songs were made by black artists, and then it was just a white artist that covered it and made it pop. But prior to that, it was the black artist that created a lot of these hits
Right. But
from
what
a lot of these well-known artists.
But what I'm saying though is like I think that now that we've come to hip hop, it's like they don't want that process to happen again where history is rewritten or like the face of hip hop. When you think of it, you think of, you know, a white guy. You want it still to be a brother. You still want it to, you know, to represent where this came from. So I understand the level of sensitivity that comes with that, you know, because it's like, dang, everybody trying to come in and always take from us, right? As much
Take
as we've
advantage.
given and opened up. So I understand that perspective. But for Latinos, I understand the perspective too, where it's like, hey, like don't erase all the contributions that we did make over the years too. It's just like you have to be specific in what you're talking about when you talk about this topic. Are we talking about contributions along the way? Are we talking about the literal inception at, you know, the moment that this was, you know, so you just have to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
very specific in what you're saying because, you know, the FBA, they're saying that all these elements existed prior to 1973 when it was finally joined together and considered that this is hip hop, you know what I mean? Like people were dancing, doing breakdance moves before graffiti, all this stuff. Hip hop was born out of James Brown, right? So like there's these different things. So it's just more of like I
Trying to cover
understand.
half a century of history,
Right.
it's going to be a very hard process. You got to depict every moment. It's 50 years, yeah.
Right.
So that's the problem.